Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 142 for the 12th of Nissan in a leap year. So we've talked previously on this podcast about the subject of mindfulness and how it's a current trend in the world at large, getting in tune with this idea of living a more mindful life, which tends to translate in a very general way to mean not going through life in this more automatic state, like kind of zombie-like state, like half awake, half asleep, not really realizing what you're doing, but really to be present in everything that you're doing. So today, we're actually going to take this concept of mindfulness and take it to the next step, to a new level, a level which is kind of unique to Judaism in a sense, at least given from a Jewish perspective. And this is the idea of awareness. And what do I mean by this? Meaning to say that not only should we be present in what it is that we're doing and not like have our thoughts be elsewhere. This is the idea of intention. We've been talking about having like the proper intention when we do the mitzvahs to connect to God, like really to be present in them. But another thing we really need to cultivate is a sense of awareness. What do we want to be aware of? We want to be aware of what's happening when we actually do these actions, becoming aware of the effects of the mitzvahs, of what effects these mitzvahs are having upon our souls, upon our bodies, and upon the world and the worlds at large. So we are still in the middle of chapter 41, and let's get straight into the text and see how the Alter Rebbe explains this. So just for context, yesterday and the day before that, we were talking about the idea of really cultivating a sense of awe and reverence towards God and thinking of God as this supernal king and really meditating upon this. So now today, the Alter Rebbe is going to begin and say that not only should we meditate upon all of the above, all of that idea, but one should also meditate upon upon how it is that the infinite light of God, which surrounds all the worlds and fills all the world. So again, these are these Hasidic terms, Sovev Kol Amin, which means surrounds all the worlds, and Mamale Kol Amin, which fills all the worlds. These are very deep Hasidic ideas that I don't want to get too into right now, but basically how it's the kind of like more transcendent aspect of God and the more immanent aspect of God. So God is everywhere and also in every individual thing. And this is specifically the supernal will. So basically a person should meditate upon how this light, this infinite light and this supernal will is vested within the letters and the wisdom of Torah or of this tzitzis or tefillin. And in reading this Torah, so like let's say if a person is studying Torah, they should have in mind that this supernal will and this light of God is vested inside these letters of the Torah. And if a person is donning tzitzis or tefillin, then again, this infinite light is vested within the tzitzis or tefillin. And in donning these things, he is drawing down God's light to him. Meaning to the part of godliness that comes from above, that is inside of his body, to become encompassed and to become nullified in God's light, in God's blessed light. So remember how we talked about this previously in the Tanya, how every person is connected. Every person, first of all, has a part of God himself within us. This is our godly soul. And so our particular part of our godly soul, when we do a mitzvah, such as tefillin or tzitzis or learning Torah, then this part of us becomes elevated back and becomes nullified back in its source in God, in the light of God. And then in specific, so now the Alter Rebbe gets more particular here, when we're talking about tefillin, for example, then what happens is the aspect of the person's chokhmah and bina, like his wisdom and understanding of his godly soul, become nullified in the chokhmah and bina of Hashem, of the Ein Sof, which is vested in a particular way in the parsha of Kadesh and the parsha of Vayaya Ki V'echa. So these are two different verses, two different parts of verses which are written inside of the tefillin, and they relate specifically to the chokhmah and bina, to these two intellectual attributes of the soul. And so the whole idea basically is that a person basically is declaring, like they're sort of like making this commitment that they're not going to be using their wisdom or understanding, which is inside of their godly soul, for anything other than God himself. And so too, to have his aspect of das, which again is the third intellectual attribute. This is the attribute that's commonly translated as knowledge, better understood to be like attachment. This part of us which connects our intellect with our emotions. So to have this too, this aspect of das, to also become nullified and to become encompassed, this das within our godly soul to become encompassed in God himself. And this aspect of das contains within it chesed and gvura, which are the two emotional faculties. Because again, the purpose of das, as I mentioned, is to connect the mind with the heart. And chesed and gvura, which literally means like chesed is like loving kindness and gvura is like restraint or severity. So the way this translates into actual expressed emotions is fear and love, with love being this more like loving kindness aspect, the right side, and fear or awe being on the side of severity or restraint that are within the heart. And so the idea here is to have this das that we've been talking about, which is this connector between the intellect and these emotions, specifically the emotions of love and fear of God, to become encompassed in the supernal das, which encompasses within it the chokhmah and gvura, the chesed and gvura, that is vested within the parsha of Shema and V'haya im Shemoah. And this lines up very well, says the Alter Rebbe, with the statement in the Shulchan Aruch, and this comes from Or Chaim chapter 25:5, which says L'she'abed halev ha'moach chulei, to make one's heart and brain subservient to God. So basically, the whole idea here is that in performing these mitzvahs, and specifically here, the Alter Rebbe is really focusing on the mitzvah of tefillin. That's his main focus, but this could apply to many other mitzvahs. We should not just be doing the mitzvahs, like not only should we not do them like just mindlessly, of course not, but we should really have an awareness of what's happening when we do these mitzvahs, and to really cultivate this awareness that through donning the tefillin, we are subjugating our minds, which ultimately translate into our heart, to God, and have our minds and heart become totally nullified to God himself, and to have become totally encompassed in the light of God. So this was the focus on tefillin, and tomorrow the Alter Rebbe will continue, and he'll focus on tzitzis, and we will take it from there. So I'll speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.